my name is Stephanie, and my topic question is, should a tuition-free higher education model be implemented in the United States? So the topic question revolves around the social problem of the constant rise of tuition costs for higher education in America. Additional underlying social problems related to this topic question include the decline of high school graduates attending college in the first place, as well as the decline of high school students who complete their college education. On one hand, of this social problem, you have the proposing side. So the proponents of the topic question are in support of implementing a tuition-free higher education system in the United States. So the general stakeholders of the opposing side consist of most college-age students, both currently enrolled and those who have already graduated. So these are the primary individuals who experience the immense financial burden of rapidly increasing tuition rates. Another group of general stakeholders are students and families in the middle to lower income bracket. So this is the group that falls in the too poor for college but too rich for financial aid range. And then the final general stakeholders are the parents of college students. So there are numerous parents who wish to help pay for their students' education, but because tuition costs are so expensive and they only go up year after year, parents could easily pay upwards of $300,000 for a single child's 4-year college education. For many families in America, that is a lot of money and could quickly cause families to struggle financially. The first and most prominent advocate for free college tuition is former presidential candidate Bernie Sanders, who made implementing a tuition-free higher education model a focal point of his campaign and who still speaks out about its importance today. In addition to Bernie Sanders, specific proponent stakeholders include the Campaign for Free College Tuition, and that is a union of individuals and groups who believe today's economy requires the country to make higher education affordable for everyone, especially if we are going to have a workforce with the skills necessary for young individuals to compete in the global marketplace. So along with the Campaign for Free College Tuition, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is also a strong supporter of implementing a tuition-free college model. So Andrew Cuomo is also responsible for making New York the first state in the nation to make its public universities and colleges tuition-free for all residents. Several other cities and states have actually followed suit as well, and some of those include Tennessee and Oregon, and they actually offer tuition-free community colleges. San Francisco, California, and San Francisco, California also offers state and community colleges tuition-free starting this fall. So now on the opposing side, the first general group of people who are against implementing a tuition-free higher education model in the U.S. are most taxpayers. So if a tuition-free college model were to be implemented, taxpayers who are in no way related to, associated with, or responsible for someone who is a college student would still be required to pay a tax in order for the government to receive the funds necessary to cover the cost of all tuition for everyone, everywhere in the United States. So free higher education doesn't mean absolutely free for everyone either. Someone still needs to pay for the education, but that someone becomes all taxpayers, whether or not they have a college-age student. The next general opposing stakeholder group consists of most private colleges and universities. So these private institutions stand to lose the majority of their middle-class student population, and along with that, many financial resources. And lastly, for the general opponents, we have a number of governmental officials. These governmental officials are not opposed to implementing a tuition-free higher education model entirely, but their argument is more focused around how the system will never work in the current U.S. economic system, and that any model presented simply doesn't apply. So now for the specific stakeholders. So the first specific opposing stakeholder are David Bergeron, I believe is how you say his name, and Carmel Martin. So David acted as the Education Secretary's chief advisor on higher education issues, while Carmel Martin is the executive vice president for policy at American Progress. So David and Carmel argue, argue that ensuring that Americans are prepared to meet the demands of the new global economy should take precedence over implementing tuition-free higher education. So the second specific opposing stakeholder is actually Betsy DeVos, who is the United States Secretary of Education. So DeVos isn't necessarily against tuition-free higher education either. She's just more in support of for-profit colleges. So DeVos has also addressed that free college isn't actually free and that she doesn't support requiring all taxpayers to pay for the college tuition of others. The final specific opposing stakeholder is Mary Claire Ream, and she is a policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation, which is an organization with a mission to formulate and promote conservative public policies based on the principles of free enterprise, limited government, individual freedom, traditional American values, and a strong national defense. Her opposition stems from the argument that offering free college tuition does nothing to address the underlying cause of tuition inflation. So the first issue discussed by stakeholders who support the implementation of a tuition-free higher education model is total cost for the student to attend college, including tuition, books, room and board, and any other additional fees. The daunting cost of tuition for higher education discourages numerous students from pursuing a college degree. It also discourages currently enrolled students from completing their college education due to their ever-growing student loan debt. So, additionally, families in the middle to lower middle income bracket make too little to afford to pay college tuition fees out of pocket, but they also make too much to qualify for enough financial aid to cover the needed cost of tuition, plus all the additional fees. Home ownership also often prevents the awarding of financial aid in amounts significant enough to cover the need for tuition. So an example is for one family whose daughter was accepted to Johns Hopkins University, which was a school of her choice. Tuition for 1 year, just 1 year, was $54,470, and the total amount of financial aid awarded was just $6,000. A final issue discussed by stakeholders who support the implementation of a tuition-free higher education model is an increase in college completion. So high student loan debt, is a major reason why students drop out and don't complete college. So making tuition free would encourage students to complete their college education. According to the Pathway to Prosperity study by the Harvard Graduate School of Education in 2011, only 56% of undergraduate students actually complete their undergraduate studies within 6 years, while only 46% completed at all. The first issue discussed by stakeholders who oppose implementing a tuition-free higher education model is also cost. So free college isn't free. Any tuition-free plan will cost a lot of money, but it won't necessarily cost the student, it will cost the taxpayers. So we must acknowledge that by creating real educational opportunity that best serves the interest of taxpayers. We must acknowledge that creating real educational opportunity that best serves the interests of taxpayers, students, and families is much more complex than what free implies. 3 key issues to address in any proposal to expand funding are cost to the taxpayer, impact on students and families, and the regional economic impact. So another issue discussed by stakeholders who oppose implementing a tuition-free higher education model is the value of a college education. So if higher education becomes free for students, it might devalue a college degree. Additionally, if students are not paying for their own college, they might take for granted the opportunity to receive such an education, which could lead to students cutting classes, taking a longer time to graduate, or even not completing college at all. And a final issue discussed by stakeholders who oppose implementing a tuition-free higher education model is overpopulation. So as enrollment at public universities increases, so do the fees. And this means that either a waitlist would need to be created for students wishing to enroll, or the universities would need to receive even more funding. And in order to increase funding, taxes would need to increase even more. And since funding would be coming from the taxpayers, which would not be good. So now I'm going to drill down on the main issues for each side. So, or the one main issue on each side. So on the proponent side, the main issue is definitely cost. The high cost of tuition for higher education combined with the rapid tuition inflation rate is more than enough to discourage prospective students from pursuing a college degree in the first place or from completing it once they've started. Student loan debt can rise well into six figures. Estimates on average put current debt figures at $1.4 trillion over 44 million borrowers, which turns out to be $620 billion more than the total U.S. credit card debt. To show how much it has increased over time, the average total tuition, fees, room and board rates, and any additional fees charged for full-time graduate students in both public and private four-year institutions for the year 1984 to 1985, taking into account inflation, was $11,548. Whereas for the 2014 to 2015 school year, the cost was $21,728. So while that only reflects an average increase of about $330 each year, there were years where there was an increase of only $100, but then years where there was an increase of $1,000 or more. So tuition since then has shown a substantial increase for first-time, full-time undergraduates in 2015 to 2016. So the Campaign for Free College Tuition, a nonprofit that believes in affordable higher education, has helped launch Promise programs across the nation. So Promise programs are place-based scholarship programs that make college tuition free for at least 1 year of college. So while all require residency and a high school diploma, some have additional eligibility criteria, such as a minimum GPA or things of the like. And so Promise programs have proven to be the single most effective education reform initiative communities or states can undertake to simultaneously improve high school and college performance for their students, families, and economy. By making a promise or guarantee that college tuition will be free for all qualified residents, making a family's finances irrelevant to their children's ability to attend college, the concept has proven to change the conversation and therefore the culture about college attendance at both the individual and institutional level. On the opponent side, the main issue is the cost for taxpayers. So most of the proposed plans for implementing free college tuition do so by requiring all taxpayers to pay significantly more taxes. Excuse me. Many criticisms by opponents charge that tuition-free schools shift the financial burden from the primary beneficiaries, the students, to the taxpayers, but do nothing to address college quality or the underlying cause of tuition inflation. Many opponents to implementing a tuition-free higher education model agree that tuition costs are too high, but they don't believe taxpayers should pay for it. Some other plans of action being presented by individuals on the opposing side are keeping loans affordable. The U.S. Public Interest Research Group, or PIRG, is campaigning to prevent interest rates from doubling and advocating for more and better repayment options for students once they've graduated. Another recommended plan is to increase grant aid to students, such as the Pell Grant. And the Pell Grant is the federal government's cornerstone financial aid program, which provides scholarship aid to almost 10 million students and 10 million students of modest income each year. Additionally, making textbooks more affordable could also make a large difference as well. Although textbooks are not included in student tuition, their prices have been rising 4 times faster than inflation, leaving the average student paying over $1,100 each year for textbooks. The U.S. PIRG is working on fostering real competition in the textbook marketplace by promoting more affordable options like open textbooks and open education resources. So proponents value equality and equal opportunity above all else. So they believe that all students should be given an equal opportunity to attend college without cost preventing them from doing so. Another thing proponents value is justice. Students should be given a fair opportunity to receive a higher education and not be denied the opportunity for things that are out of the individual's control. And lastly, proponents value human rights. What is meant by human rights is that the right to a college education should be a basic given right, not something that is solely dependent on an individual's income or a family's income. Opponents value justice and equality, just like the proponents. Just because opponents don't answer yes to implementing a tuition-free higher education model in the United States doesn't mean they support high student loan debt and increasing tuition inflation, but rather the goal for them is to address the issue of why tuition rates are inflating so much and so much more rapid than the regular inflation rate. So in addition to those, opponents also value fairness, which stems from the belief that all taxpayers should not have to pay for everyone else's college tuition. Now moving on to my civic engagement. Since all financial higher education planning meetings that I was interested in attending were actually scheduled for late August and early September for back to school, I instead listened to a conference call hosted by the Campaign for Free College Tuition, which was provided in full on their website. So the conference call included Ted Mitchell, who is the Undersecretary of Education, and Morley Winograd, I think is how you say the name, who is CFCT's president and former senior policy advisor for Vice President Gore. So other supporters were also a part of the conference call to discuss ways to ensure free college education for all Americans. So even though the conference call was actually from 2015, a lot of what was discussed revolved around ways to ensure free college education for all Americans, even applicable to today. So Mitchell, the Undersecretary of Education, actually began the call by laying out the plans for Obama's proposal called America's College Promise. This proposal would make 2 years of community college free for responsible students who meet a set of criteria, including things like maintaining a 2.5 GPA and attending class at least half the time. So community colleges actually educate about 40% of the nation's undergraduate population. So the proposal would allow students to get half of their education under their belt for free before moving on to a 4-year university to complete their schooling. Or they could, in fact, complete their schooling with an associate's degree in 2 years as well. So by the year 2020, it is estimated that at least 2/3 of new jobs will require some type of secondary education. Community colleges are a unique, affordable way to provide that secondary education, so we need to protect that and make sure it remains affordable. How the proposal would work is that federal funding will cover 3/4 of the average national cost of community college, and then states that want to participate would be required to contribute the remaining quarter. The proposal provides a unique way of handling increasing tuition costs by starting small. So he's not proposing to have all colleges in America immediately offer free tuition, but rather he's offering a stepping stone so that ultimately one day America can get to that point. So although I was actually unable to schedule an interview, I did attempt to schedule a Skype interview with Mary Claire Ream, who is a policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation. I mentioned her earlier. So I was very interested to talk with her because while I was conducting my research, I felt like she got to the real root of the issue, which is the dramatic increase of tuition inflation. I had a feeling that hearing her point of view and justification for why she feels the way she does about not wanting to adopt a tuition-free model in America would have been more thought-provoking than simply reading her article about it. And truthfully, when I began this project, I had a very biased opinion, but after researching truly without a bias, my eyes have been open to both sides of the argument. And so even though I didn't conduct an actual interview, I still feel like I was able to learn so much more about the proponent's side after researching Ream in preparation for the interview that I was hoping to get, but unfortunately was not. And finally, since my topic question dealt with a social problem that was built around money and affordability, I started my research with articles that were saturated with statistics so I could begin to see kind of where the underlying social problem to my question was rooted. The article that worked best for me was called A Look at the Shocking Student Loan Debt Statistics for 2017. So this article gave me a great understanding of the underlying social problem associated with my question. And then from there, I was able to find publications, books, documentaries, and even more articles to get a well-rounded understanding of the social problem, as well as all of the issues that actually stem from it. And so that is my presentation. Thank you.